other theory that you wanted to talk about.
The protosystem.
Yeah, the
Should I
protosystem.
go ahead now and talk about
Yeah,
that?
let's do that.
Okay, so the protosystem, people may wonder, what is a protosystem? Just that word is a bit sort of, what's that? What it means is that the first or earliest manifestation of something. So the protosystem thinking is how thinking develops from very early on in life.
Right.
So think that's what it means, basically. So we talk about protosystem, and it sounds very theoretical, but it's actually just early thinking and how early thinking develops.
Right.
So Lowenfeld was very interested in thinking about how do babies, even from later on in the womb, so just before birth, really experience the world.
Again, like 100 years ago.
Yeah, and
Saying
she
these
was
things.
so ahead of her time, really.
Yes. Wow.
And she was very much unbounded by outside theories. She developed her theories from
Right.
inside and in her own experience,
Yes.
is how I see it. So it's really original in those terms now. Now it's like more our understanding of how minds and bodies work. But in those days, it was really, really pioneering stuff.
Very.
And she got terrible hassles from people for her work. I don't know if you've read any of the
I
lectures.
have, and I would, after reading those, I would think, isn't it sad every time, like time period, um, leaders have that experience, and then later on, people read and go, oh, yeah,
Yeah,
that's exactly what that was.
I know. And then there was sort of, because there were sort of rivals as well, um, the Freudians and the Kleinians came along with their own strong theories. And it
Yes.
was a kind of survival thing in a way. I mean, they were just kind of trying, fighting for survival.
I think they were fighting for survival for like grant money
Yeah,
and
well, and
space
funding
and funding, right?
Lowenfeld's clinic was funded by the London County Council, I think, for a
Yeah,
while. So
yeah,
that was anyway. So protosystem thinking is about this early thinking, early form of thinking, and how a child develops their own view of the world from a wordless state in the womb and from when they're born. They don't have language, they don't have
no,
words.
no,
They have their sensory systems, they have the five, sight, touch, hearing, taste, and smell, and the experience of movement.
right.
So it's touch is the most early one and most important, your skin
Yes,
relation to touch and the world. And then the others develop, but it's also how you get moved as well through space. So it's
yes,
sort of three-dimensional thing. And that's why talking about how does the body, the body in action, the child in action, how do they approach putting things into the sand tray? It's not just what they put in, but it's how do they
yes.
cross over as are they kind of conflicted, and is it aggressive or is it gentle or tentative or determined, or what is all of that? And but it also tells you something maybe about how they've experienced movement of
Yes,
being handled themselves
right.
so this early thinking is formed from the experience of the five senses plus movement. And what our brains as humans are designed to do is to make patterns. So we think, oh, well, that's happened before. That must be
Yes,
like that one. But you don't have a word for it at this point. You might have oh, that's the red thing, or that's the
yes,
spiky thing, or that's the thing that makes me hurt. You know,
yes.
I feel whatever it is. I feel pain. I feel soothed.
Or rejection.
Yeah, angry. I mean, somebody's angry, someone's I'm frightened, and so you start to make patterns. So things that cause you similar emotional responses get clubbed together,
And
and they
we know from neurobiology research, like that actually is the thing.
that's how
And
memory
approaches
works.
like EMDR or brain spotting,
Yeah,
they're based on the belief that those patterns are in a file folder And
That's
when you
it.
start to process this experience, the other, you can get to the touchstone or the earliest experience.
So that
You
that you
knew all that.
Yeah, and she says these things are clusters. They're called clusters. So all these little clusters that are
Yes,
similar emotion things that cause similar emotions are stored together. So
yes.
we could say that let's say a miniature might represent a whole cluster. It might be lots of different things in that cluster that come out,
That might
but
not
they're
make
all
sense to
coded.
us as the witness right away, or even the
We
builder.
don't know.
We don't know. Yeah.
And they're individual because as very interestingly, she says, well, a child can't talk to other people in the early proto-system stages about, what is the agreed meaning of this or whatever. It's just making its own meaning. So
Yes.
it's all, the proto-system is individual and idiosyncratic. It belongs to that person. It's not the same as anyone else's.
And that's a powerful statement for listeners and students to really hear. You said the proto system is individual and unique to each person,
Yeah,
which is why when I'm training, I really stress that there are some models of Santray taught in the world that this means this and that means that. And I argue it may mean this to this person, but it could be something totally different to the other person based on their experience.
yeah.
And that's coming right from the proto-system theory of Margaret Lowenfeld.
And it's a pre-verbal system. It's a
Right.
non-verbal system.
Right.
It's not just actually when you're a child. We go on adding to it all our lives,
Yes.
and we add to the clusters as well.
Yes.
So I was thinking about something. Do you remember Princess Diana? She
Yes.
died,
Yes.
and the whole, I don't know if it happened in Canada, but the
It's
whole of the UK was consumed with grief,
yes.
and people were mourning publicly, flowers. The whole thing was huge. But what happened, I think, was that it represented everybody's experience of grief.
Yes.
So everyone could project their own grief into grieving for her, and
Yes.
at the same time grieve for all the other grief that they maybe hadn't
Yes.
hadn't dealt with or was reignited. So
But it
that
was
was the whole
normalized.
cluster,
It was normalized and accepted, and yeah,
and it was a way of doing it.
yes,
They could go to the park, they could bring their flowers. So people could deal with stuff that was their own stuff while dealing with the grief of losing Princess Diana. So that's, I think, quite a good example of how emotions are clustered together and also unlocked in a
and
way.
unlocked or unbound. Yeah,
Yeah. So they become able to express that cluster in different ways. So it's an interesting idea, and I think what the main thing is to me is it makes you very careful about making interpretations of what a child is doing from you, Susie's point of view, or you, Theresa's point of view. That's not
agree.
it. Or
Yeah,
Klein or someone else's point of view. It's that it comes from that very, very early experience. And the clusters are there and then they get added to, and you get more and more as well. But they're very much non-verbal and you can't really express them in words. And you'll
right.
sometimes hear someone say, I don't have words for this feeling. It's too much. There isn't a word for it. It's too
But
big.
it's so important what you said, Susie, around the therapist not making assumptions about what they think a
Yeah,
miniature means or what cluster it's taking, like, standing place for.
yeah.
Because we don't know. It could be, and I always in training talk about a group sand tray that I was facilitating. I don't often do directive trays, but it was a workshop for foster parents around what play therapy can do. And I asked them to each pick a miniature that represented a value they have about supporting children.
Mhm.
And there was a new manager that had joined the training, and he was a polar bear and I picked a deer, and the polar bear was standing over me. And in the second go, which was risky, but the purpose of it was to communicate, like to have an experience about communication and how we teamwork. So I
Mm.
said, you can in the second go add a miniature, take a miniature out, or move someone else's miniature, because then we're gonna have a conversation around boundaries and rules, right?
Yeah.
So what this person did was he took the deer, and of course he was new, and all the people in the room were worried about what was gonna be his impact on them. Was he gonna be supportive? Was he gonna be hard on them? Whatever. And he took the deer and he put it down, and the whole room went, because that was their biggest fear, right? He's gonna
Yeah.
put the deer down. So I didn't respond, and we went through, and then at the end when they were processing and everybody talked about the miniature that they had, I looked at him and he said, "You're wondering about the deer." And I said, I was. So I was being curious, which is what I suggest students do, be curious.
Yeah.
And he said, I wanted the deer to know that it could lay down and rest and I would stand over it and protect it.
Well, there you go.
And the whole room then went, oh, and so I share this with every training because I say, like, we can put our own stuff on something and be so wrong. And then
Yeah.
like reading the file, then continually acting on that perception and not, and yet sometimes the person also doesn't know. So by asking
No.
someone, what does this represent? You're really putting them in a bind when they don't. So I would rather ask an open-ended question like, is there any when we're doing a tour afterwards, is there anyone in the world that would like to share how they're feeling? Or does anyone in this world know sadness and or happiness or whatever? And then I'm not putting them on the spot to say, what does this mean? Because they may
Because they
not have
don't
a
know. Well,
word
if
for it.
they do know, they don't have words for it.
Yes.
Because it comes from the may come from the early protosystem thinking, which is about feelings on the three
Yes.
dimensions or the five, the five senses and the movement. It's
Okay.
not expressible in words.
Yeah. But
So
it's still,
they can't answer you from that point of view.
yeah, amazing. And 100 years
You just
ago.
have to accept it, and then they will understand it. And I mean, I think I may have spoken to you about the girl I saw who had experienced a very catastrophic injury to her brain,
Right.
but she'd made a massive recovery, really, really good recovery. And so in her sand tray, she'd represented a ruined castle. But right at the back, on the right hand side, there was a new town being built.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And she told me about this new town and this new castle. And she was 10, so she had quite a lot of language, and she had got most of her faculties back again. So I said, is there anything in your life that maybe this reminds you of at all? No. And she said, I was wondering about, a long time ago when you were ill. And she suddenly went, oh, the new town. And I said, yeah, you I think you've rebuilt, haven't you, from this what happened, and you've rebuilt. Yeah, and I mean that just went wee. The light went on, but she was this took several weeks of work.
Absolutely.
She got to
Yeah.
the point where this made any sense to her, and I was really, really holding off making
Yes.
any reference to anything and
Yes.
making any connections for her. But I felt she was ready because it was near the end of the therapy. I thought
Right.
she's ready now to make that link to her own life
That
in
it just
words.
makes me smile because when I talk about phases in training, phases of witnessing a sand tray, the second last phase is making meaning or connecting meaning. But I'll say to students that doesn't happen in it's not every session. It shouldn't be. You're
No,
more likely you'll know when you're at the point in therapy where because the person is starting to make connections and starting to show you. But we don't need to ask those questions early on just because we have a need to know,
no,
because that's actually, they're not ready.
no,
Um,
they're not.
it's-
But she was definitely ready at that point.
yeah, wow.
Yeah, and then sometimes you'll think, oh, maybe I will make a link, or see if there is for them a link,
Or ask a curious question, like, I'm
and they'll
wondering
say
about what this is
no.
about.
They
Yeah,
just say I don't know, or you just get
yeah.
blocked. They
And then
just
they're not ready.
yeah. And maybe they're never ready for words. They might just all see it all in the sand tray or in the mosaics. There's a
So
great
affirming.
in the book that I was just showing, expressing the shape and color. Show it again. Theresa's book. Um, there's a description of a young man who's made a mosaic tray, and
Yes.
it's all very, very symmetrical. And this is about him trying to balance his world, and it's
Right.
all about the balance. But in the middle is a space, and he talks about this space as it feels like he's in a coffin and being
Oh,
compressed by all the things around him,
wow.
all the demands on his life, of his parents, all the fact that they neglect him and don't understand him, and he's being just squished by all this stuff around him, and he's trying to balance it, but it ends up just squashing him. Um,
Yes.
but then he was able to move on from that perception. But that he got to understand his own issue by looking at his mosaic and exploring. It's very beautifully written by Therese in that book.
Yeah, it's a lovely book.
Description of how that thinking and it was expressed. So protosystem thinking seems to be kind of complicated, but it actually isn't. But you have to just remember it's about non-verbal thinking, and that's why these
Yes.
projective techniques of the mosaics and the sand tray are so good, because they get to parts that words cannot reach, basically.
Yes. And that it, like all of that work that she shared so many years ago has
Mm.
been affirmed by neurobiology
Yeah,
research today. Like,
yeah,
just like,
that's how the brain works.
yes, it's so awing, isn't it? Wow.
Yeah, but it means she was on the right track, and that doing this kind of work is still very valid. It hasn't been invalidated by research; it's been validated, really,
Yep.
which is
Uh,
terrific.
It is.
Really feel,
Yeah.
and that's why I think I'm always going on about this. The sensory aspects of the sand tray, the three-dimensionality of it are so important. And I know we're all very into screens and all of that stuff, but I
Yes.
do think this early thinking, if you think, well, as a baby, what's the experience? It's all about,
Touch.
touch,
Senses.
movement, you get hearing, you get vision, you get taste, obviously, and you get moved around or you are moving. That's, you can't put, there's no other way of expressing it, really, that early experience. And that's what's the kind of foundation blocks of our thinking. And we move on from there. And obviously we develop language and understanding, and some of the ways we do that are many and various, but it's all built on the core of the protosystem. So even when
Yeah.
we're working with adults, it's still relevant. It's still,
Right.
all of that early stuff is still there.
Yeah. And it just makes me then think about the spaces that we create for therapy. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah. Like I have one room in an office where there's like trampolines, balance boards, like places to make safe, like structures and
Yeah,
cushions.
yeah, I have
Like,
had a playroom like that too.
and it's so like for those kiddos whose has been blocked, they go to that room first,
Mm,
and then they're ready to go into like doing sand tray work or something else.
yeah,
And it's so it's meeting them where they're at again.
absolutely, and having that available. I mean,
Yeah.
you often read about playrooms needing to have a cozy corner and like cushions and soft wrappy up places, but I think they need the kind of bouncy up and down extrovert type expression as well. That's
Yeah,
not.
in my office where I am today, it's I rent space in the town hall.
Oh yeah.
The mayor's office is under me. So I
Mhm.
had one little boy where I always booked him Friday at 5 because the mayor wasn't there because he would jump and boom and he would say, "Is the mayor here today?" And I'm like, "Nope, he's not. He's gone home." Okay, good. And he'd be bouncing and rocking
Yeah,
around.
yeah,
That was part of the work. Like he needed to do that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Wow. Well, it has been, as I expected, such a delight to spend time with you this afternoon. So I
great.
just, I just want
I
to say
think
so.
hopefully I've said everything I needed to say. I think I did.
Well, I
So,
think what's going to
have some
happen is we're
notes.
both going to have thoughts afterwards about other topics, and then we'll set up another video time.
Yeah, yeah, it's great
'Cause-
just to talk anyway.
Well, and
Make-
to hear your stories of
Mm.
with people that have come into your playroom, Yeah, that's that people, new therapists and other, like, well, sanctuary therapists like to hear, because we work sometimes so much in isolation.
Yeah.
Nice to hear how that other people are like, yeah, I've had people do that when they've come to my office too, or
Mhm.
just to hear the stories. I think stories are
Yeah.
really important. So thank you for sharing yours.
No, it's great.